When I was 7, my parents got a divorce. I didn't know how hard it would be until I got a little older. After going through the trauma of my parents' divorce, I couldn't believe it when my family I was living with began to make my life even more miserable. It started with just yelling back and forth between everyone. This went on for years, only having a break when I was at my dad's for the weekend, every other weekend. This escalated to my mom lying to me about my dad saying he didn't want anything to do with me, which later on in life I found out was false. And of course, this was over text, which made me even feel more worse. After I had stopped talking to my dad, which was what my family wanted, and that's when it got worse. They now felt empowered and began to control me to an extreme. By 1, not allowing me to work. 2, continually pulling me out of school to do things around the house for them. 3, by making me feel like I wasn't important. 4, and making me feel bad if I didn't want to do what they wanted me to do for them. As a result of this, it lowered my self-esteem, and I began to feel worthless. After my self-esteem had hit rock bottom, I then began to get blamed for everything. One incident I can clearly remember was my sister had lost a new box of contacts. She then begins yelling at me over text, saying that I'm lying about not stealing them, and that I had hid them on her, and that when I get home, she was going to make it a living hell for me. She eventually had found them, buried under clothes in her room, before I had even gotten home. As a result of all of this verbal and cyber abuse, as most of it was through text while I was at school, I ended up having to go to the hospital due to hurting myself to escape. Once at the hospital, I began to notice how they were controlling me. I was shocked when my father showed up. We began to talk, and after a few months, I eventually moved in with him. While living with my dad, my self-esteem started to come up. I was doing good in school. I had a boyfriend. I was looking for work. Things were going great. Or so I thought. My family didn't approve of me moving to my dad's, and made it very clear by continuing to try and control me through phone calls, Facebook messages, and text. Another incident includes my uncle Facebooking me, saying I was being selfish, ignorant, and should get my priorities straight by moving back to my mom's, or I was going to live a very lonely life because no one at my dad's loved me. That same day, my sister's friends began to text me, saying, "How could you be so hurtful to your sister and your mother? They have done everything for you. You're nothing but an evil, conniving, manipulative little bitch." The text messages continued with even more hurtful things. Along with this came the phone calls saying, "I hope you're happy that you ruined everyone's lives. You have made Mom so upset that she's depressed because of you. Because of this, you will never see your niece again." Once I received these messages, I knew I could talk. I knew I could go to my dad, and I know he would deal with it. And he did. The messages and phone calls have stopped, and I'm 100% happier now than ever before in my life. Because of all these messages and their actions throughout my whole life, I have chose to make my project about cybercrime in hopes that my story will help others realize that as bad as things get, you will always have someone there that loves you, just like I do with my dad.